Silence please, all stand. This commission is now in session. Please be seated. Matter number C 2018-1, section 285, annual wage review for decision.
The Fair Work Act requires the Commission's expert panel to conduct and complete a review of the national minimum wage and minimum wages in modern awards each financial year. The decision we are issuing today deals with the 2017-18 annual wage review. Over 2.3 million employees have their wages set by the national minimum wage or by a modern award and will be directly affected by this decision. The panel's decision also affects other employees, including those whose pay is set by a collective agreement, which is linked to the outcome of the review. We will shortly publish our decision in respect of this year's review and a summary of that decision. I only propose to make some brief remarks about our decision now. The panel is required to conduct each review within the legislative framework of the Act, particularly the object of the Act, the modern awards objective and the minimum wages objective. As part of the review, the panel considers both the setting of the national minimum wage and whether to make any variations to modern award minimum wages. Each of these tasks is undertaken by reference to the particular statutory criteria applicable to each function. The panel has taken into account all of the relevant considerations in arriving at its decision. We accept that the panel's decision-making process should be as transparent as possible and that we should disclose the factors which are most relevant in a particular year, and we have done so in this decision. We turn first to the economic environment. Compared to the position at the time of last year's review, the economic indicators now point more unequivocally to a healthy national economy and labour market. The recent data have shown strong growth in full-time employment, together with a high participation rate. The labour market has improved significantly, with strong employment growth of some 355,200 workers over the year to April 2018, of which 265,000 were full-time employees. Employment growth of over 3% recorded at the end of 2007 and in early 2018 is much higher than at the time of last year's review. Further, as pointed out by the Reserve Bank, recent employment growth has been higher than population growth. The economy has continued to grow, with real GDP increasing by 2.4%, consistent with the 5-year average. Growth was broad-based, with 16 out of 19 industries recording growth. Business conditions remain positive. Profits grew by 4.3% in 2017 and by 5.8% in the non-mining sector. Survey measures of overall business conditions are at their highest levels since the global financial crisis. Inflation and wages growth remain low. The Consumer Price Index increased by 1.9% over the year to the March quarter 2018, and underlying inflation and the Living Cost Index rose by 2%. The latest data show that the Wage Price Index increased by 2.1% over the year to the March quarter 2018, having increased by 0.5% in each of the last 2 quarters. Low wages growth has significant economic and social consequences. As the Reserve Bank Governor has remarked, sustained low wages growth diminishes the sense of shared prosperity. The economic forecasts from the government, as presented in the recent budget, the Reserve Bank and the International Monetary Fund, all point to improving economic conditions ahead. As the Treasurer and the Minister succinctly put it in their post-budget submissions to the review, and I quote, "The Australian economy has entered its 27th year of economic growth and has performed remarkably well in adjusting from the investment phase of the mining boom towards broader-based sources of growth. Real GDP is forecast to grow in 2017-18 and to accelerate further to 3% growth in 2019 and 2019-20. In each review, we must take into account the employment impacts of the national minimum wage and modern award minimum wages and any proposed increases to these rates. We remain of the view that modest and regular minimum wage increases do not result in disemployment effects or inhibit workforce participation. Recent Australian research published by the Reserve Bank, the Bishop paper discussed in Chapter 2 of our decision, provides support for this view. Recent research in the UK continues to support this conclusion. The position is more contested in the United States. The real value of the national minimum wage has increased by 5.8% over the last decade and by 4.3% in the past 5 years. However, this has not resulted in improvements to the actual or relative living standards for many categories of national minimum wage and award-reliant households due to changes in the tax transfer system. It has, however, provided an increase in the living standards of single adults. Consistent with the view the panel has taken in the past, we have not taken into account the measures proposed in the recent budget which are yet to be legislated. The prevailing economic circumstances provide an opportunity to improve the relative living standards of the low paid and to enable them to better meet their needs. As I have mentioned, compared to the position at the time of last year's review, the economic indicators now point more unequivocally to a healthy national economy and labour market. The circumstances are such that it is appropriate to provide a real wage increase to those employees who have their wages set by the national minimum wage or by a modern award. We have, however, decided not to grant an increase of the size proposed by the ACTU and the Australian Catholic Council for Employment Relations. In our view, an increase of the size they propose is likely to run a substantial risk of adverse employment effects. Such adverse effects will impact on those groups who are already marginalised in the labour market and on households vulnerable to poverty due to loss of employment or hours. An increase of the magnitude they propose would also carry a substantial risk of reducing the employment opportunities for low-skilled workers, including many young persons looking for work. The level of increase we have decided upon will not lead to undue inflationary pressure and is highly unlikely to have any measurable negative impact on employment. However, such an increase will mean an improvement in the real wages of those employees reliant on the national minimum wage and modern award minimum wages, and will, absent any negative tax transfer effect, result in an improvement in their living standards. We have decided that it is appropriate to increase the national minimum wage by 3.5%. The new national minimum wage will be $719.20 per week, or $18.93 per hour. This amounts to an increase of $24.30 per week to the weekly rate. We have also decided to increase all modern award minimum wages by 3.5%. weekly wages will be rounded to the nearest 10 cents. At the C10 tradesperson's award level rate, this translates to an increase of $28.30 per week. We have taken into account the circumstances of different regions, industries and sectors, but for the reasons we set out in our decision, no exceptional circumstances have been demonstrated, such as to warrant a deferral of the increases we have awarded. We acknowledge that the compounding effect of increases over time may have a cumulative effect which is not apparent in the short term. We will continue to closely monitor this in future reviews. The determinations and order giving effect to our decision will come into operation on 1 July 2018. The timetable for next year's annual review will be announced in the third quarter of this year. I wish to conclude by expressing our appreciation to the parties who participated in the review for their contributions and to the staff of the Fair Work Commission for their assistance. We'll now publish our decision and adjourn.
This commission is now adjourned.